The continued reaction to President Biden's debate performance includes criticism of the media's reporting of the debate and the follow-up focus on the president's health. Some critics claim that there's a bias in the way the media is covering the president as opposed to reporting on Donald Trump's many falsehoods in the debate and in subsequent speeches. To talk more about this, we're joined by Julia Wallace. She's a professor of practice at ASU's Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining me.
Good to see you.
So what do you think? What do you think? The mainstream, we'll stick with the mainstream media right now. The coverage, first of all, of the debate and the aftermath.
So here's a truth. You ready for a full truth, Ted? Is when there's bad news, you blame the messenger. And so all these people saw the debate. They were frankly upset, horrified, concerned, use your word. And the press reported on it, and people didn't want to hear it. And so I think a lot of the criticism you're talking about is really just sort of that natural thing that happens where we get blamed.
Okay, let's talk about the media, though, and the coverage of the president. Why didn't the media cover the president's condition to this extent, or even close to this? Obviously, this was on the grand stage. But where was the media in the months prior to all this?
I think this is a really great point. There was some reporting. The Wall Street Journal did an excellent story on it. Axios, the White House correspondent's done some good work on this. But the reporters, I think, suffered from two things. One is they, frankly, has happened in White Houses before. You get so tied in with your sources, you don't see what's right in front of you. And second is access was very limited, and they needed to fight back more. But I do think that is very much a fair criticism. This needed to be aggressively reported much sooner than it was.
Does it amount to negligence, do you think?
Negligence is a strong and legal word. I'm not sure I would use that word, but what I would say is that, like anything, you need to make up for it. We didn't do a great job in the past. I don't know if it's been 6 months, a year, I'm not sure what that correct time frame is. But now, as it's become clear, there needs to be more aggressive reporting. And
I mentioned negligence because there's some on the right side of the aisle suggesting that it not only is it negligence, but that it equates to censorship when you don't do your job. They got a point?
Well, I mean, we know the story about Roosevelt, right? That
yes.
The press totally covered up his health issues. We know the story of Kennedy. Press totally covered up a lot of his personal issues. I think as time has gone on, the press has gotten much better at exposing, what they see. But sometimes it's hard. I think it's when you don't have access, when you don't have the sources telling you what's going on, it can be difficult.
Let's talk about the focus again, a lot on Biden's age, his condition, these sorts of things. After the debate, there was focus on what Donald Trump said, some of the things, and the many, many falsehoods. CNN put together this absolute cavalcade of list of things that was there. Do you think there was not enough attention paid on that? Or again, was Biden's performance so surprising that it just overwhelmed everything?
Right. So we're in the news business, and the news was Biden. What Trump said, as CNN and others documented, there were a lot of falsehoods, a lot of exaggerations. But it was par for the course. It wasn't a surprise that happened. I think what happened with Biden is people were surprised by what they saw. I mean, there had been some indications along the way. There had been some videos, there had been a few snapshots, but all of a sudden, for 90 minutes, millions of Americans are sitting in their living rooms watching someone who can't finish sentences, who's really struggling to articulate key points. And that is the news. Ordinarily, you would think when someone, a presidential candidate on a debate says, "I didn't sleep with a porn star," that would be the top story. In this case, it wasn't.
But does that mean that much of Trump's behavior has been normalized through the media and with the media? I mean, granted, a lot of the things he said we've heard before. They're falsehoods. He repeats them. But what's the media's responsibility to say that still isn't true?
I think they are. I think that continues. I think the question is, who's paying attention to that? I mean, I think if you go back and look at most mainstream media and their coverage, there has been a lot of documentation of Trump's challenges and issues. But I think that's sort of gotten conflated with this Biden issue, and I don't think it's really appropriate to compare the two. I mean, we could certainly look at how the press has covered Trump, but I think in this moment we need to look at how the press has covered Biden and how we will cover it going forward.
And again, we're talking about the mainstream press in particular.
Yes.
Lots of internet chatter about Epstein and Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein and the investigation and what that investigation is bringing out. We're not seeing that. That is news, and that is surprising,
Yeah.
and it's salacious, and it's all the things that seem to gather attention. We're not seeing a heck of a lot on that. Why do you think that is?
I think it'll be interesting to see if that reemerges. I think that could happen. I think some of it is this is so sort of taken America. If you look at this, what's going on with the debate, we are mesmerized with Biden. I mean, we have aging parents, we have aging grandparents. This is something very relatable and real for people. And so we watch this in a very emotional way. And so I think this story has a lot of resonance for people.
I was going to ask about that. It just seems like almost everyone knows the story of taking the keys away. We can't let you drive anymore because it's not safe and you're too old. And what a fight that can be.
It's funny you say that. So my mother had eventually Alzheimer's, but when she was in the stage with mild cognitive decline, she was still functioning, but was having a lot of trouble driving. Refused to stop driving. And ultimately, though, we had a remedy. We were able to take her down to the DMV. They gave her a test. She flunked before she got out of the parking lot, and they took her license away, right? And so I think one of the interesting questions is, how do we deal with older adults who begin to have issues performing in any job, but particularly top jobs like this? And what are the sort of remedies along the way? It's tough, and it's a hard issue because we're all a little afraid of talking about aging.
Yes, we are. Last question here. Does any of it matter as far as the election is concerned? It seems like everyone's mind is made up one way, shape, or form. They're either if they vote this way or vote that way, regardless of who the candidate might be. It almost seems as though this is a sideshow. I mean,
well, let's look at what just happened in England. Let's look at what happened in France. Everybody said, here's what's going to happen. And guess what? In both those elections, it didn't.
right.
And so I think we need to trust the voters and know that they're going to listen to the information and make the right decisions.
Julia Wallace, Cronkite School, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.